Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. And has the game ever pushed you so far that you've just got so irate that you have to try and like double down, dig deep to be able to get through a game? That's exactly what's going to happen today. You're joining me at the end of an evening. I think it was like 10 o'clock in the evening. I've been streaming all day, and no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried, for some reason I just couldn't get above 50% win rate. Now a lot of you will be out there going, oh, look at QB crying about 50% win rate when I'm getting blah 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 blah. Well, the way that averages work inside World of Tanks is that I average about 62% wins inside the game, give or take, obviously depending on the tier that I'm going to be playing. And so if I feel like I'm trying as hard as I can, and over the course of an entire session, over the course of an entire evening, I'm still getting a 50% win rate session, that's the equivalent of someone who's getting 49% average, having a 37% win ratio session throughout the evening. It's brutal sometimes, however, a large number of games, World of Tanks and the matchmaking just make you feel absolutely helpless within that regard. And the same thing was going to happen here. I looked back and I saw the whole of my team kind of just chilling up on the ridge line with very good medium tanks, just creating a line along there. Fair play, some of the other vehicles had come along here. And I just thought, oh, am I going to be in another one of those games where my whole team just hangs back, doesn't actually get into positions that matter, and then lose the battle? Apologies if I'm going to cough a few times during this this video. I just got back from America, and I didn't catch anything on the way there, but Tanya did on the plane. And then, yeah, Tanya basically transformed it, mutated it, a la Nurgle, and yeah, mutated it into something. So thanks for that, Tanya. I appreciate it. But yeah, all in all, I'm feeling pretty good. It's not too bad, so it shouldn't be holding me back too much. But I digress. Let's focus on what's happening now, and that is that I just felt like, okay, literally the whole of the enemy team is there. I'm in a fairly poorly armored medium tank that's rather large and isn't going to do very well against all of those hold-down vehicles, and I wanted to play to my tank's strengths, which are vision, camo, and hopefully using mechanics and bushes to my favor, especially with the build that you see me using, where I'm using vent, a vision system, and an exhaust. And because this vehicle has 410 meter space view range, vents are more than enough, in my opinion, and will be able to give you the edge in all of the other areas compared to whacking coated optics on this vehicle. If something gets about, if you're a premium consumable user, if something has 380 base, then you definitely want to be using optics for the most part. Otherwise, you better be using something like bond vents to be able to pump it up a little bit. But as we can see, now the whole of the enemy team is just rolling into this shooting gallery for me. And we're going to be using these bushes by driving back behind them until they become no longer transparent to be able to signify where they aren't going to get negated when I fire the gun. So the number one tip in World of Tanks is to try and find bushes and pull back behind them when you fire. And if you can do that, then it doesn't matter how many guns are in front of you, as long as you can keep your singing at the target. So, mental in World of Tanks. I think one of the best videos I made this entire year was in an FV215P, but I just don't think I really used the correct thumbnail or title for the video. It discussed mental inside the game, about pushing into a flank, whether you should just, and your whole team don't help you, and who's at fault there. Is it you self-sabotaging, and you're not just using the opportunities to fall back and trying to create another angle? Or is it a case of the matchmakers just screwing you, and it doesn't matter if you fall back and you're going to lose anyway? In that video, I discuss that I quite often self-sabotage when I get bored towards the end of the evening, where I can't dig deep to be able to, you know, fight back against World of Tanks, to make those correct decisions, to make those correct plays. It's really hard. The easiest thing to do in World of Tanks is to hold down the W key and go in. It doesn't require a great presence, doesn't require good map knowledge. Well, it requires you to know the maps, but not in real time, is what I'm suggesting, because you don't adapt. You just go in and try and deal with whatever you can with the scenario. You can play in that fashion if you're tired, you can play in that fashion without focus. But really, to have the impact that you need, you have to have that presence there to be able to know if it's time to fall back, to know if it's time to be able to hold that front, to know if you're actually going to be able to survive in that position. And unfortunately, it looks like the Leopard realizes that the Manticore is there, but luckily the Manticore gets greedy, thinking that it's only the Leopard here, and so that means that we actually managed to get a little bit of vision on the Manticore. But unfortunately, the British light tank scurries away. So we're now up to 9,800 combined in the first 5 minutes of this battle, and we still got a huge amount of work to be able to get through here with 9,000 hit points still left on the enemy team. And that fallback play has not only resulted with me getting great combines, the fallback play has also resulted in my team managing to get some good impact here. I can't blame the way the Manticore is playing there. He's one of the most scouty tanks inside the game, and he's got forwards and he's trying to probe those defensive lines, and unfortunately I think he crashed into a dead gorilla there, and I was so happy because now that I know that Manticore is out, that means that I can be cheeky. And what was that? I think that's because we were firing a high explosive shell with its relatively poor shell velocity on this tank. Well, 1,200, poor compared to the APCR rounds, and so a little bit of bad RNG and it flies over the head of the FE405. I hope we aren't going to regret that later on in this game. But man, with that Manticore out this battle, this shows you really where a build like Vision System Exhaust can just help your team negate overpowered tanks like Manticores on maps like this. And that's why I will always take Vision System Exhaust in practically every medium tank. Maybe not something like an M48 or maybe something like an E50M. I feel like those are still tanks that want to just get to the front and do the work there. But for anything that can at least be reasonably sneaky, like the Vickers can, especially if it's sitting still, this vehicle has like nearly 14% base camo, which with an exhaust, with a good crew, that's going to get up to a very hard level for a light tank to be able to get rid of until you move. Medium tanks sitting still inside bushes are sometimes just as good, if not better, than light tanks that are moving if both medium and the light tank have the vision system, because of the way that it negates the camo of a moving target. Unfortunately, we get spotted for the first time in a while, and I thought it would either be a Kunzerpanzer or it would be a Centurion. I'm going to poke around the corner, deal with the Centurion, and the Kunzerpanzer wasn't exactly where I expected them to be. I thought they'd be further over towards the right there. But luckily, the 13105 does a good scout run and lights up the Kunzerpanzer for the Kampfpanzer 50T to shut them down. But we get an opportunity shot into the Centurion Action 10. So, just a stunning game so far here. Just really good bushwork. Their opponents just can't seem to get a finger on the pulse of where we are right now. And it's just keeping our team in it. That's all there is to say. Sometimes in World of Tanks, to be able to get your 50% win ratio in a session, you also have to be getting kind of like your 11 or your 12,000 combined games. And this is one of the rounds where I feel that, maybe this is bold to say, but I think the vast majority of players would have already allowed this game to snowball out of control, because perhaps they wouldn't have taken that vision build to counter that Manticore. Perhaps they wouldn't have known about this fallback location. There's so many different decisions that you have to make through every battle of World of Tanks. And one of the decisions is usually the correct one. Well, it has to be. There has to be a right or wrong decision for being able to achieve your goals in every scenario, right? Sometimes it's a clear-cut choice with a defined positive outcome. And sometimes the lines are a little bit blurred, where you're having to make the best of bad decisions. An example of that in World of Tanks is where you have to decide, do I want to get shot by the T110E5 or do I want to get shot by the E100? Well, I'd rather get shot by the T110E5 because that thing's got less alpha, and then I can hopefully deal with that while the E100 is reloading with its lower DPM. Unless, of course, it's using the 128mm, and then there's not very much difference in the DPM anymore. And that is what is being tested inside World of Tanks, is your decision making, your ability to try and figure out which is the right decision, which is the wrong decision. Are you able to see that? Are you able to perceive that multiple times throughout the battle? And just one mistake will cost you perhaps too much to be able to then get through the rest of it. So in this scenario, I realized the enemy basically figured out, oh, well, they're camping there very well and stopping anyone from getting in along the south, so let's attack in along the north. So I decided that it wasn't right for me to be able to to camp there anymore. Had to be able to try and push out to make sure we don't end up in a pincer. And oh dear, APC are unable to go through the BZ-58-2's turret there. Maybe I should have fired a heat round there. And maybe that'll be the straw that breaks the camel's back with regards to winning this battle. There's 2 players on the enemy team, 3 players on the enemy team, 2 with 3 kills and 1 with 2 kills. So they've clearly had a good impact in this battle. But luckily, I'm in a game with long-range sniper who's playing in their AMX 13105. And we're going to have to come up with a plan here to be able to take this one down. So again, in this kind of a situation, the 13105, as long as they've set themselves up correctly, will be the better tank moving close to our opponents. I'll have good vision for sure, and I'm not going to be bad with a build like this, but the light tank is going to eclipse my capabilities with regards to playing in a pure scout fashion, because remember, the medium tanks just lose 20% of their camo while they're moving. So it looks like I've been rustled. The Skoda T50 says, hello QB, that's a little bit late into the battle. Leopard's like, QB, what? And then I ask now, what equipment do you use? I have a vision exhaust. Because I'd like to know what the 13105 is using. Because if I find the 13105 is using more of a damagey build, considering they're called long-range sniper, then that means that it's up to me to be the more proficient scout in this battle. But if the 13105 hopefully lets me know if they're using vision system, exhaust, and the Jaegeru on our team, who looks like they're in a platoon with them, says he's using commander's vision system, optics, and low noise exhaust. So that's good news. I press affirmative. All of this kind of information is fantastic to receive, because now I know that the 13105 is a proficient scout. They've set themselves up correctly in this scenario, and that means that they're going to be able to stay hidden and spot for me. And you need to have all of the information at your disposal, so excellent communication by their platoon mate, the Jaegeru there, to give me what I needed to know. So now I realize that we're both pretty cool in this situation, but the Vickers as well, and the Char. Oh man, the Char's there. I say we must retake, and that means that I actually missed my opportunity to shoot the Char, but I don't want to break something. I want to end his life, Uncle Scrubs. How does that one not go through the side of the Char? What an absolute disaster shell that is. The Char now on 400 hit points, so he's pretty much a 50-50 whether either of us are going to take them out on a single shot. And will the Char poke? Will the Char poke? Will the Char poke? He's looking at me. He's looking at me. Fully aim, hopefully. Yeah, baby. There we go. Good night. And I don't get spotted. I want to make sure I don't bump out my friend, so I swing to the left to ensure they're still okay. I put one through the side of the BZ-58-2, and I think the 13105 is doing a fabulous job spotting for me now. We're up to 13,000 combined, boys and girls. 6,800 damage and 6,000 spotting here. Worried about whether Vickers is going to come through the side. Don't want to get proxy spotted. Now that I see the Vickers is fired, maybe we can get a cheeky shot in there. That should make them have to play a little bit more defensively. And our 13105 goes in. He whiffs a couple of shells. Does he have the third? Doesn't look like he has the third. He needs a bit of a... Okay, he does have the third. He was just waiting for it for an extra long time. I thought he needed me to help out a little bit there. And now it's a case of, will the Vickers run? I say chase him in the chat. I ping. We've got to make sure this Vickers doesn't try and run away and play for a draw, because they're on 92 hit points, and I'm almost certain that they'll try and scurry away from this scenario. But actually, they don't. They're right there. We missed the shot on the move, but luckily with 1,200 hit points, unless they ammo rack me or they set me on fire, then we should be able to take a hit and finish them off. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this was such a feels-good game in every sense of the word. After a whole evening of World of Tanks, of no matter what I did, my teams seemed to fail me. I didn't tilt out. I dug deep, got through this one with over 13,000 combined. And sometimes that's what you've got to do to even achieve your 50% win ratio in a session. And remember, like, for me, it's still a bad session, as I said earlier. If I'm minus 12% on what my average is, that's still bad. But the thing is that winning these games, it prevents those kind of like disastrous scenarios. And remember that you should take each game as they come and not think about everything that's happened before. Hopefully you've learned for it, and you can be able to adjust your plays later on. Try and focus on that battle, that the scenario that you're in right now, that one battle that you're in, and do everything that you can to be able to influence it even if sometimes your team wants a little bit too much from you. So an ace tanker here for the Vickers for 1,544 base. Phenomenal for a tier 10 tank. We got our first mark of excellence of patrol duty and a high caliber for that 7,300 damage and 6,000 spotting. But also a massive shout out to long range sniper in their 13105, who, while didn't do too much damage in this battle, they still packed out 4,700 spotting, keeping the other flank alive as well. And as we didn't go too liberal on the gold rounds, hit a nice 66,000 credits profit. So all in all, the Vickers, a wonderful sniper. Do I think it's great? Nah, it needs some armor. You have to have armor in World of Tanks if you want to carry the majority of your battles, because unfortunately not every map is like Stajunki, where you can control the vision and snipe. Sometimes you just have to get forwards, get hull down, like in something like a Centurion Action 10. And while this vehicle is definitely like 5, if not 10% better with regards to its firepower than a Centurion Action 10, it doesn't have any armor, and I'd still rather go hull down in the British Tech Tree medium tank. So if any of you are thinking, oh, I've got to get my hands on the Vickers, sure, it can feel pretty nice. It's a bit like a Leopard, but don't stress if you didn't get this vehicle, because it's actually quite mediocre, and I think you'll do better in the vast majority of your games in a Centurion Action 10. So ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was Damn You World of Tanks. Not today. Really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below, what are your strategies for dealing with just a horrible session of matchmaking? Do you take out your favorite vehicles, or do you Alt F4? And if you're watching this video as it's released on Friday, as I'm back from TwitchCon, Wargaming is celebrating with some brand new drops. And so come along, get yourself some reserves, get yourself some camo for some of your tanks, and feel free to come along and ask about some questions about, did I like America? Did I like California? So really looking forward to seeing you all live right now on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.